weren't on the card last night. So that could have something to do with it now that I think about it. But nonetheless, I don't know. I'm more of a fan of TNA. And then the problem with SmackDown is the way WWE looks at it right now is Raw is more entertainment-based. ECW is where you're going to build your new stars, and SmackDown is more wrestling-oriented. You know what I mean? Where you've got three totally, completely different shows. One is sports entertainment, or entertainment, whatever you want to call it. The other is build stars. The other is wrestling. You know what I mean? So the problem with SmackDown, though, is it's on Friday nights. You know what I mean? And Friday's a tough night to for me at least, to be able to catch SmackDown. But I've heard it's been excellent in recent months, so maybe worth checking out. But TNA Impact is my weekly show. You know, Thursday nights is where I stand. I don't know.
Yeah, again, you know, it's definitely a show that is up and coming. It still has a lot of great potential. It's just there's a lot of that down south booking. Kind of reminds me of the old WCW days. And someone said in the chat room, it's the same thing like, you know, the hog pen match, you know, on Extreme Rules. I mean, yeah, we've seen that in, you know, in Henry Godwin, and, you know, we've seen that in the past, and it's kind of rekindling again an old angle on WWE. And the reality is wrestling is all about recycling, and, you know, what people were wearing in 1970s are wearing them again, you know, so everything revolves around. It's just how you present it, the timing of the event to do it, and is it something a little bit creative, a little bit more edgier. And I think that's, you know, WWE switching from the Attitude to the PG kind of changes that perspective, and you're seeing a lot of Vince McMahon and little angles like last week pushing down the gentleman from the Nuggets, you know, stuff like that. To me personally, that doesn't move me. It's not doing anything to excite me, saying, oh, I got to go and watch Monday Night Raw.
Well, that one, I mean, the Vince pushing down Kroenke, the impersonator, I mean, that was obviously done just for media last week. But I know what you mean. I mean, things like that don't intrigue you to watch the product anymore. You know what I mean? But they got the media that they wanted out of that. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's basically why they did it. But I don't know. Would you? Well, we got sidetracked. Monday Night Raw from Monday, obviously. Overall, school letter grade. What'd you think?
I gave it a C, and that's being generous.
Yeah, I gave it a B minus. And I mean, I see people in the chat room that are talking about this, that it was another horrible show. But I mean, based off recent weeks, I mean, I've been nice. You know, I've given them a C minus. I think I gave them a D one week, but I say a B minus for this week. I don't. You know, they kept the corny stuff. Like we didn't. Remember we talked about last week with the Brian Kendrick, all right, where you had thought maybe something was in store for him, but he wasn't used on Monday Night Raw. So it looks like that is at least put on the back burner for now. We didn't have the Goldust and the Hornswoggle tag team on Raw that we've seen in recent weeks. They were nowhere to be seen. And then we opened it up with what I thought was a great, I mean, I know Randy Orton starts to show up week after week, but
that's probably the reason why I gave it a C.
Yeah, but
it probably would have been more of a B minus, but it's just I'm getting sick and tired. I mean, 3 weeks in a row due to starting the show. Come on, give me a break.
Yeah, and the problem is with, well, not the problem, but what made this segment really good, in my opinion, was when Rick came out. And they did the banter back and forth, you know, and I thought that was really, really well done. I mean, Flair, yeah, he's up there in age, you know what I mean? But as far as a guy who come out and cut a promo, you know, I mean, I thought that was unbelievably well done, especially when Flair came out.
And it's interesting because, you know, you did have Flair kind of, you know, start off the show, or not start off, but you have Orton start off the show, and then, of course, you know, Flair comes in and interrupts and requests a street fight, you know, and which leads to the main event, which was interesting, indeed, only because of, obviously, you know, Flair coming out of this semi-retirement role and saying, hey, you know, I'm retired, and I'm not saying that I'm going to unretire, but in the meantime, let's fight this out. And it's interesting, too, because now I'm kind of agreeing with you about Batista turning heel.
Yeah, because they did that. Oh, I'm joking. Because they did that backstage segment, right, where they had Batista and Rick said, do me a favor, just be a friend for once. Let me go out there, let me fight. I've taken a punch before. Just be there, be a friend, da-da-da-da-da. And Batista said, all right, let him do his thing. And then at the end of Raw, when Batista didn't climb that cage, and you were thinking, climb the freaking cage, you know what I mean? I don't know. I just... One of those guys, whether it's Ric Flair that turns heel or whether it's Batista that turns heel, and I'm still sticking to my guns with Batista.
I mean, I would like to see Flair turn heel, and only because it's just like, you guys retired me and I'm unretired. You know, it makes him a lot like, oh, great, not only are you returning back to the ring, but now you're a heel, and people will just hate him even more. You know, I mean, there's people in the chat room, I think, earlier were saying, oh, you know, Flair would be disrespectful if he decides to step back into the ring after his big announcement of retirement. I think they can use that and elevate that and implement something in there where Flair turns heel and sides with Legacy. I think that will give the group an elite individual, and not only that, but it kind of reminds you of a new school of the Four Horsemen.
Well, here's the thing with Flair, and as of right now, there are no plans for him to wrestle in WWE. They sent him out with a big match at WrestleMania, and that's kind of how he wants to end his WWE career. They're going to let him wrestle overseas, over in Japan, some big offers out of them. I think NWE put on a big offer on the table last week. So I think he's going to go out there and do most of his wrestling. So still play a part on WWE TV, on Raw on a weekly basis, but I don't think he's going to wrestle. I don't think they want to tarnish that, and that could change. I mean, that may change over and over and over here in the next few months. But as of right now, all his wrestling is going to be done outside WWE. And I know the street fight on Raw, that was horrible, by the way.
It was done poorly. But you know what? You know what's funny is that we're talking about like Flair possibly returning. It wouldn't surprise me if they keep him in that role, in that enforcer, like, you know what, let's fight this out. You know what, I'm going to interfere. You know what, I'm going to do whatever until either that day does come where he just says, you know what, I'm just going to fight one more time. Because there's one thing of retiring and maybe having one or two bouts, within your span of retirement, and there's another thing about retiring and then just coming back. The old classical wrestler that's out there that you can probably think of, Terry Funk comes to one. He retired about 14 times and then came back. In Flair's situation, he can retire but still wreak havoc. And I think if Vince and Vince and the WWE decides to do something with Flair, that might be the role that they may want to give him to say, hey, you know what? You're not going to come back into the ring full time. If you want to wrestle outside the company. But more importantly, you're going to be a guy that's going to be kind of like the Stone Cold back in the Attitude Eras. You're going to be this individual that's going to wreak havoc, that you're not going to take no bull crap, and then kind of work from there.
Yeah, no doubt, and I like that too, because then he's able to. I mean, he's going to make some huge money, especially as it pertains to wrestling matches overseas in Japan. So he's got big money from that. And then the WWE deal, like I said, as of right now, there's no plans for him to wrestle, but it's money there too. You know what I mean? Where he can go over to Japan on the weekends and be back in the United States for Raw on Monday and get paychecks from two different companies. You know what I mean? And that's not the norm. You know what I mean? WWE usually doesn't allow that. You're either under contract with them, you're a wrestler for them, you're not going to work for anybody else. You know what I mean? So Flair's deal is it's a little bit weird, a little bit different. You know what I mean? Unique. It's
definitely not something a normal norm that you get from the WWE, but it kind of gives you that respect factor. I mean, that's how much respect Flair has for Vince and the WWE. So it's definitely something to speak volume of. And to think about it, if Flair does get banged up to a point where he gets injured overseas, and it doesn't really still not prevent him from showing up on TV because he's not wrestling with the WWE, which I think is the reason why they said, you know what, you want to wrestle over there, wrestle over there, since you're not going to be wrestling here.
Yeah, isn't it amazing that some guys, Flair's about 60. somewhere around there, somewhere around 60, you know. But there's guys, you know, when they hit 40 or 45, they can't even walk. And then you've got a guy like Ric Flair who's 60 and says he feels great and wants to go out there and wrestle. You know what I mean? So it shows. I mean, I guess everybody's got a different body. You know what I mean? Some people's bodies can take it, while others can't. But Flair's been around for a minute. You know what I mean? Always out there on a night-to-night basis, house shows, live events, TV tapings. You know what I mean? And he's still going strong. So you gotta.
He's
gotta
always
give him
the truth faithful. When NWA/WCW was fighting with WWF/WWE, there's a very elite number of group that did not leave the NWA/WCW when they had so much opportunity until obviously, you know, Eric Bischoff came aboard and got into a big issue with Flair.